and I'm certainly excited to be here to discuss a topic we don't talk about enough.
What's happening, guys? Dante from Verbal Riot, and yeah, here to talk about this damn show once again.
What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. I am here representing the power of many fans that are pissed off about this entire show. Let's get into it.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's actually set the mood. And I want to get your impressions because now you all have seen episode 3. Alan warned you. He did warn you. He texted me and I couldn't believe it. And then I binged the first 4. But now all of you have seen episode 3. You've all experienced something like this. The power of one. The power of two. The power of many. The power of one. The power of two. The power of many.
No other collection gives you the feeling of pure moods.
What was that? I don't know.
I don't understand the finger thing.
Oh my God. All right. For those who have not rendered their opinion, Alan and I want to go around the horn, starting with Badger, who's a new contestant here, and get your thoughts on episode 3 in particular.
Part of it was par for the course. I was not offended by a lot of the things that people were offended by, but the big one was, I think, exactly what the Immaculate Conception was the one that's like, damn, there's no way. I could sort of cope with a lot of things. There's no way to do that. The invalidation of the Chosen One and Anakin and the prophecy, and specifically doing what Plagueis and many others in Theory made some great videos pointing out all the other people who have tried. I don't have a problem with Force Witches and calling it the thread, because as we've pointed out, that plenty of other cultures do it. But yeah, it's the Immaculate Conception for me, and we could talk about that more.
Oh, great. Okay, script.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was not bothered by the thread stuff. I will see the power of 1, 2, and many is kind of a weird chant to have for mob rule, because essentially that's what it's promoting. As for the Immaculate stuff, George Lucas screwed that up by introducing it in the first place. I can't really blame Leslie for running with that idea. That's his fault. I hated it back in 1999 when I was a teenager. I hate it today. There's nothing more impressive with regards to storytelling when an ordinary person that's not special turns to a villain that manages to do massive devastation around a galaxy and then is saved by his son. The moment you try to make that allegorical to a religious aspect is the moment you kind of gut your very thing. As for the Immaculate Conception part, as for the Chosen One part, we don't know if these 2 kids are actually super highly advanced Force sensitives or not. We know that they were created by the Force, but Anakin had that high midichlorian count. We don't know that yet for these girls. Do they?
We also don't know they were. It's inferred it were. Well, that's what I'm saying.
No,
we haven't got confirmation yet.
You inferred it. It's implied, but not necessarily implied. It just said that it's done. So you have to be careful about that because, again, this show hasn't delivered yet. This was the first episode that I did fall asleep in the middle of because they basically spent it's all in flashback.
It was voodoo.
This should have been, when you're telling a mystery story that has different perspectives, you go through the Rashomon or vantage point approach. You don't just kind of lay out the whole thing in a very superficial manner. You get different perspectives. And I also kind of understand why Anakin wasn't made a master at his young age, because Torben was so young 16 years ago. And he spent a decade doing that Force levitation stuff only to, off himself through a poison. I bet they thought if such responsibility were given to Anakin, he'd do the same thing because that's the precedent now. That's why you don't have any under 30 masters. So,
Rob,
a lot of weird ideas from this episode.
Rob, I want to hear from you because I got a torrent of texts from you, like 20 in a row from you. Just you were ranting. I know you feel passionately. Tell me your thoughts on 3.
Well, okay, here's the thing. If you're working in someone else's playground that they established, I think you have an obligation, which most of the people that are stewards of current day IPs do not feel an obligation, to follow in those footsteps. And I feel if you're going to take giant leaps of lore It doesn't bother me that there are other Force users or there's other religious orders or other sects that think of the Force differently than the Jedi do. I have no problem with that at all. Because remember, Yoda just says the Force surrounds us and binds us. If the Force is truly a universal energy field that's created by life that anybody can tap into, well, that's interesting. The problem is the way they went about it seems, even Star Wars is analogous to the real world. Luke was a farmer. Han Solo was basically a bootlegger. And I've often said that these are characters that we all identify with. And they were sort of the entry characters into the franchise for everybody. We were all Luke, looking at the twin setting suns of Tatooine. But in this instance, where is our point of view characters? What is analogous if we've seen the Witches of Dathomir. How are these witches different? Where do they come from? How are they informing the audience as to what are we supposed to make of this? And it seemed to me that, they had an idea of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to approach it, but whether or not it was Star Wars enough, or even if it had some kind of a counterpoint or counterpart in the real world that the audience could relate to, not so much. And if you're going to work within Star Wars, established Star Wars lore, if you're going to change it or make fundamental changes or take us to a place we've never been before, you have to make it credible for the audience that spent the last 47 years steeped in it. And all these creators want to come in and change things. Let's turn Spock into someone that has a learning disability, which it shows you don't understand the character of Spock. And in the case of this new order, I just didn't believe it. I haven't believed any of this show from the beginning. The opening scene is how is it any different than anything else we've seen? And somebody gets killed, a Jedi Master gets killed by a knife to the heart. I don't believe this show, and it's not because of the elements that are in it. It's the elements that aren't. I don't understand how I'm supposed to relate to it as a lover of Star Wars and as a general audience member. They haven't made me believe. There is no verisimilitude.
Well, Nerd Cookies, Elaine, you got into it, so I know how you feel, but please tell us. Got into it on Twitter. We'll show that later. Yeah.
Well, one of my biggest issues, really the Acolyte just dialed it up to 11, but Disney has been, since they acquired it, since the sequel trilogy, has tried to dismantle, has tried to paint the Jedi in a bad light. And with the Acolyte, it's just on a whole new level. And it really just reached this fever pitch of painting the Jedi as like these predators and incompetent. And it's just not. And they're trying to do this thing too of there is no good and evil. It's all your point of view. Well, yeah, and it's all just your perspective, which seems to be the theme of this show in its entirety. It's just, it just depends on what your point of view is, what your philosophy is, and whatever. So that's so boring, by the way. Star Wars has always been about good versus evil, and what Disney has cultivated are this fan base of Disney fans that just think there is no good and evil and that the Jedi are just as bad as the Sith. And so I tweeted a simple statement that should have been, it's just a core element. It's simple, not inflammatory. Wasn't meant to be inflammatory, but man, it caused a fierce discussion. The Jedi are the good guys. The end. That's what I tweeted.
Yeah.
Especially during the High Republic.
Controversy.
Here it is, right here. So simple. The Jedi are the good guys. The end. And 5.3 million views.
Wow.
for this
Wow.
tweet.
That's amazing.
I hope you're monetized on Twitter there, Elaine.
Right.
But
He is now.
Yeah, that gets you right there.
a lot of people we know agree, but people were crazy going after you. They are the devil's
Yeah.
in.
Well, most people will just hit like and like move on. Yeah, it's duh. Yeah, that's what it is. But the ones that wanted to debate, like just kept it going, kept the traction going, and it's just been crazy. There are ones that said the Jedi are garbage. The Jedi are, predators, that they've, recruit kids and just do all these things. And and that they're just as bad. That Obi-Wan and Yoda are just as bad as Palpatine for wanting to trying to get Luke to confront the Emperor. In their minds, he ordered them to kill him without mercy, and
No, he didn't.
just how it's twisted of like your viewpoint of good versus evil. It's so antithesis to what George Lucas said about this and said about the Jedi. But this is the fan base now that Disney has cultivated, where the heroes are the bad guys, and that just seems, it's really sad. It's really sad that this is what it's come to. That George Lucas has said not that long ago, before this show even premiered, I think, that his ideas have been lost, and this is like the most recent example, most egregious example, in my opinion, of how the Jedi have been portrayed in such a dark light. Light. Is that-
Sorry.
Oxymoron.
Dante made a huge announcement on his show last week. I watched it live. Dante, you want to tell everyone?
Yeah. Before I do that, though, I just want to say that obviously I was disappointed with the show. Not for the reasons most of you guys are, though. I think I was mainly disappointed because, hey, if you give me a show about lesbian space witches, I wanted more girl on girl happening, and we didn't get that. I'm sorry, call me crazy, but give me a planet of space lesbians. I want to
the power of one. No, I'm
no, I kid, of course. But it is funny to me that this company that preaches all this diversity and inclusion and these bold steps they're taking didn't have the lesbian couple kiss even once, right? Not even once. No kiss.
They did a hand touch that they probably edited for Disney.
Of course.
Yeah.
Their inclusion is so non-committal, it's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But no, I made a proclamation on my show last week that I am not covering Star Wars on my show anymore. Any Star Wars. I'm done. And the reason why I came to that conclusion is it's just I'm only going to criticize and review things that are made in good faith. I don't think Star Wars is made in good faith at all anymore. I'm done with it.
Point.
I don't want to entertain it anymore. I just don't want to give it the energy. You know what I mean? I don't want to feed it. And to be honest, my love of Star Wars died, if I'm being really honest, with Kenobi. And I think and everything that's come after that, I've just been kind of viewing the body. So yeah, I'm done.
Wow. Well, hopefully you'll come here and
I'll talk about Star Wars and other people's shows, just not on my own personal
Talk about
show,
it, but you won't date her anymore because it's a toxic relationship and you're out.
It is. and if I'm being honest, and this is going to sound kind of corny, it kind of hurts too much now.
I get it.
It hurts. It's something I loved and cherished so much growing up as a kid. I had a pretty rough childhood. I talked to DA about that. Had a really rough childhood, man. Star Wars got me through a lot of things, man. And to see what it's become, it's become too painful, to be honest. And I'll probably get criticized on Twitter. I'll probably get dragged. I don't care. It's just I don't want to do it anymore.
Well, it's like you're dumping Star Wars.
Well, it dumped me first.
Yeah.
DA, I had the pleasure of being on one of your streams on Saturday. That was fun with Dante. That was a blast. So thank you for that. Check out both Dante and Verbal Riot. Subscribe to their channels. Your thoughts, have they changed? Any new insights?
No. Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Dante. Star Wars meant a lot to me growing up. It was a big part of my childhood. I can still remember, going to see Empire Strikes Back for the very first time with a group of friends, playing on the playground. I always had to be Han for some reason. I could never be Luke. Some other kid took the role of Luke. I had to play Han, but nevertheless, it just was a big part of my upbringing. So yeah, it hurts when you see something that you love so dearly, that you've loved for so long, get desecrated like this. And it really comes down to, what Nerd Cookie says. It's like they're trying to trash and destroy the heroes. And it's something that I mentioned, I think, on that same stream that you were on, is that we need heroes more than ever in our society. We need to see good guys And it seems like they want to take the good guys out back and just, do away with the good guys, and Leslie Headland talked about that. She wanted to challenge the institutions. Okay. That's what one of her statements prior to the Acolyte coming out. And it seems like the institution that she's trying to challenge and poke at and look under the rug or look under the rocks and see what's wrong is the Jedi. And it's like, I'm not saying that the Jedi can't be, they have to be some sort of a perfect institution, but they are still the heroes of this franchise. And it seems like Star Wars and the current, brass over at Star Wars are doing everything they can to trash the heroes of their own franchise, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. So that's one of the big issues that I have. Other than the fact that it's just bad writing, it's bad directing, the acting is bad. Even if this didn't have any of the woke nonsense in it, it would still just be a bad show because there's nothing for me. I don't feel like I'm attached to any of these characters. Who am I supposed to be following? I just don't understand it. The characters are poorly written. The acting is bad. It's just all around a bad experience. And there's a reason why, even like some of the most normiest of normie Star Wars fans are coming out of the woodworks to just say, yo, this thing is garbage. This is absolute garbage. And at some point in time, you got to wonder, what changes will Lucasfilm make, if any? Or are they just going to continue to double and triple down? Yeah, I know everybody keeps telling me they're not going to do anything, which I understand. And I kind of agree. But it's like, are you just going to continue to let this thing spiral and go down the toilet? Because that's where it's at right now. So I don't know. I'm curious now more than anything to see what in the world Lucasfilm is going to do on the other side of the Acolyte, because there's going to have to be a response, in my opinion. But anyway, that's where I'm at with it.
Well, I want to say hi to someone in the chat right now. Anna, that Star Wars girl. Hey, if you want on to discuss, please come on. But I have something you'll be interested in, which is coming up, actually, on Wednesday, July 17th. Everyone on here is invited, and everyone watching, you can partake in Funeral for a Franchise, Star Wars. That's Wednesday, July 17th. It's a global event. It will be a full day long funeral for Star Wars. It's happening. That's right. And we're going to have celebrities on. We're doing a new rendition of Oh Danny Boy, but it's going to be Oh Henny Boy with Han Solo. I won't sing it. I promise you. I won't sing it. But we are preparing videos, songs. We're going to have many celebrities and people like Drinker, Neurotic. They're all coming on. Now, it'll be formal. You have to dress black like a funeral. And women should be, black dresses, veils. We're going to have dark sunglasses. Many of us will cry.
Will you accept black Jedi robes or
black
Sith
Jedi robes?
I'm going to go against the norm. I know that Jedi Council doesn't like it, but it's not strictly forbidden in the dress code, just frowned upon.
By the way, Alan promised me he will be the priest and he will be dressed as a reverend. No, I'm serious.
Reverend now.
It's happening. But already people are speaking out.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Mr. Ng. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I am actually narrating the final episodes of my show, The Unexplained. However, I know that's not why I am here. You asked for eulogies to express our sadness at the death of Star Wars. Well, my sadness is because I've always felt this franchise is geared more to a younger audience. Now it seems to have landed in the hands of crazy, untalented people. Maybe I'm biased, but I have always felt Star Trek is the better franchise, but that's neither here nor there. So after watching the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, all I can say is they just don't care anymore. So good riddance, rest in peace. Just die already. So that's all I will say. Thank you, gentlemen.
Wow. Well, that was an honor. That was an honor for AI William Shatner to join us here. Now that we've set when I want to remind people to just one last thing here, to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, sign up as a member, join us on Discord and Rumble, buy the merch. All right. I have to say that. I'm required by law. All right. It's out. Everybody has seen it. And it was Star Wars Theory put out a tweet and a video saying he has never seen fandom more united now at how bad this is. This is where, I mean, yes, the funeral thing, kind of a joke, I know. However, I think it has the potential to be so big, to trend on social media, to get the attention of the trades, the press, that this is fandom uniting, saying enough is enough. You have damaged this franchise beyond repair. The only reaction, really possible thing you could do is put this franchise on ice and wait 5 years to come back and get rid of the entirety of the current creatives in charge, including Filoni, which everyone thought was the next George Lucas. I don't believe that anymore. So before we go to, we got a lot of social. What's that? I want to hear your thoughts on all of that. Like, this is fandom. I've never seen. Everyone's united. Like, yeah, this is bad. Even normies are noticing.
I will say that one thing that has actually given me hope and that has really entertained me in this whole situation is the fans themselves, the real fans. And we've really come together. And what they are doing is providing us what Disney won't, which is quality Star Wars entertainment. And so yes, it's sad what's going on with Disney in their treatment of George Lucas's IP, but the fans have taken over and are providing us with entertainment. Star Wars Theory is doing fan fiction stuff. He's writing his own like Vader series, and I saw his Heir to the Empire snippet the other day, and I saw another channel that's doing an anime of Heir to the Empire series that looks amazing. Like we've really united in that way too, but they're also, the fans are the ones giving us what we've been asking for this whole time that Disney refuses to do. So it's sad in that respect, but it's been really nice to see the fans really come together like this.
Look to the past. All those books they got rid of, that is Star. See, I've completely compartmentalized. Jesus, sorry. Everything talking about Star Wars. Star Wars is alive and well. Just everything before Disney bought it is Star Wars. The 6 movies and any bit of EU that doesn't conflict with those 6 movies is Star Wars. Luke's married, Mara Jade, kids, Jaina and Jason Solo. Actual strong, well-written characters. Everything that Disney has done is just legal fiction. It's just legal fiction. They will never double down because that would be admitting that their ideology, which is what basically pushes everything they do. And if you want any more proof than that, just listen to Leslie actually say what she's talking about this and how she was interested in the Sith and the power. Interesting that she would be interested in the power dynamics of a master and apprentice relationship. But yeah, everything they say, the queer interview where she said queer like 7 times in 3 seconds. They're not interested in telling Star Wars of any canon. That's the other thing. We all consider Star Wars canon very different. I guess that Script Doctor probably doesn't consider the prequels very canon-like. I do. Some people just say it's only the original trilogy. Some people, we all have different views on what Star Wars is. I personally say it's anything George Lucas did, but that's just me.
Chris, there's something in the panel. There's something that I find, and it really sort of coalesced watching this. All of these legacy IPs, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's Doctor Who, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's James Bond, there's an idea that I think is inherent of our entire culture, meaning all of Western civilization, the entire canon of Western civilization, whether it's literature, playwrights, Shakespeare, all of what brought us to where we are now as a culture. There's an agenda that it's all bad. Because in some way, shape, or form, it is oppressed. All of Western civilization was built on the backs of people that were oppressed. Yeah. And now I have no problem hearing. I love hearing stories from anybody that I haven't heard a story from before. But I feel that now there are people. There are powerful forces at work across culture that have a vested interest in seeing the West taken apart. And the thing is, our art is what defines our culture. It's what examines our culture. It reflects our culture back to us. And popular entertainment, which is global, you subvert that by bringing the agendas of marginalized people who are, let's face it, they want to see the people that oppress them destroyed. And what we're getting in our entertainment, and I don't mean to be some conspiracy theorist, but you know what? If you've been beat up by the bully,
They say it out loud.
Oh, yeah, well, one of the oldest stories in the world is to see the tables on that bully turned. The problem is the very culture that we've existed in that gave rise to all of us, is the culture that gave us the original Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and James Bond. You know, whether James Bond is a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a product of the Cold War, well, those movies worked until the latter half of the Daniel Craig era. If you want to mention them by money, okay, but I don't think anyone was particularly satisfied by No Time to Die. By the time you've totally dismantled the hero and turned him into a mopey guy that accepts his fate and dies after failing for an entire movie in Skyfall and letting his boss get murdered. But I think what we're seeing with Star Wars is, on one hand, it's great that marginalized people get to speak and they get to have voices and they get to tell their tales. But they're doing it now by subverting the tales that other people told. And they're being allowed to do it by corporations that think of those stories as product. They don't delineate. They just figure if we put Star Wars on it, it's going to make money. And let's find people, whether those people are the right fit for the IP that they're going to be in control of. A corporation doesn't, they don't know how to do that. There's no metric to measure that. Somebody had a successful, I love Russian Doll. I thought that was a great show. Let's bring the person that made that show over to work on Star Wars. On paper, that looks great. But in theory, that's one thing. But in practice, how do you vet people and see if they really love this property? Everybody's deconstructing these legacy franchises that have existed. Let's face it, they were created in a very different time. And those stories relied on myth making that is a part of Western civilization back hundreds of years, if not thousands. But now everybody wants to change things based on what's been going on the last 10 years. And it's ruining the stories.
But it would be different. It would be different if they didn't have the EU. Derek mentioned this in a show the other day. They had the EU that they could have. That was a
so did Star Trek, by the way.
Right. They have a blueprint of what basically of how they could have built this universe, right? And they made a decision. They chose not to do that, right? Instead, they acted like they had no idea what they were doing, or they acted like it. They knew what they were doing, right? Everything they did was agenda pushed.
But you know what's interesting about that, Verbal, is that when you look at all these books, especially because Star Trek has a lot of great books, Star Wars has great books, Doctor Who has great books, they were written by people that love these franchises. And when they extrapolated on things, they were basing their extrapolations on things that they love. They said, okay, if this is true in our universe, if A, B, C, and D are true, I want to get to, E, F, G, H, I. How do I make those feel realistic? And I read a lot of Star Trek novels, and the best Star Trek writers go out of their way to make their stories feel germane to the universe as it was created by the previous creators. Whereas now we're seeing the exact opposite happen. I would say why aren't, now we're watching like, hey, they stole Thrawn. They called Timothy Zahn will tell you he was called to Lucasfilm for a meeting. They had already used the character and put him in animated shows, and they hadn't aired yet. But then they said, hey, we wanted to use your character. So they took Grand Admiral Thrawn, but they didn't even use the origin or the character as written in Timothy Zahn's novels. They took that character and made it something of their own, even though it wasn't.
Paycheck, and he rewrote his character far lesser, I would argue, for Disney canon before saying he wouldn't, because there's a lot of characters that got stolen by previous actors and they did not get money or royalties, which is the big conspiracy of that's why they got rid of the EU. The whole point of it is there was a very well-established EU, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books and comics and games that actually, for the most part, the whole thing about Star Trek, Star Wars. Star Trek had a bunch of good books, but a lot of them did contradict each other. Star Wars, to its best, did try to not contradict, and the rule was as long as it didn't contradict the movies, and then there was like a level of canon. So there was an established 30,000 years worth of timeline going back that they could have even badly taken, and they're not even badly ripping it off. They're horribly ripping it off. And in Dave Filoni's case, he pretends it's his ideas, and he was even caught doing this on camera before someone pointed out that's from the expanded universe. He was like, oh yeah, I guess we did take that.
That
So-
was Lucas's daughter.
I thought he was proud of stealing ideas. He advertised that he stole Gandalf's arc for Ahsoka.
Yeah, they are not the shepherds
Yeah.
of George Lucas.
Dune
How
for
many
Ahs-
times must they prove that? All they're here to do
For
is
Ahsoka?
steal the EU. Yeah, no, Gandalf, the whole
He's
arc that
proud
he's
of
done
it.
twice, that he did twice, right? He did it in the cartoon, then he did it in live action. And he
To
made her the
Filoni, it's
star.
all tall tales. It doesn't
This is-
matter. Continuity doesn't matter.
But I would be
whole thing
okay
should be
if they did it
Luke's
right.
story.
Like if they stole it and did it right, I'd be okay with that. Tarantino
Nobody-
steals a bunch of stuff, and I love all his movies.
This should be Luke's
All we
story
want
right
is
now.
good Star Wars, right? That's all we want. That's all we care about. I don't care who makes it. I don't care who steals from what. It's like I said, we had the entirety of the EU. All you had to do is figure out what is it we want to adapt. Do we want to adapt Shadows of the Empire? Do we want to adapt Heir to the Empire? Do we want to adapt this video game? Do we want to do a film, or do we want to do a TV show? Those should have been the tough decisions. The easy decision was to do the EU almost word for word, because you already had a built-in fan base that was like dying to watch that.
Nah,
That's what
bro,
we
Ray
thought we were going
Palpatine.
to
Sorry, Ray Palpatine. That's what we
Well,
can give you.
Yeah.
another
Like
thing,
Gore
though,
Skywalker saga
appropriating
turns
it.
into the Palpatine saga. He was right. His lineage goes on. Chosen wasn't the chosen one, right? There's a bunch of twins. They were the original chosen ones. Oopsie, I guess Osha and May need to come back and do what Anakin failed to do. Like, it's an abomination. And they did. You know, the reaction we're having is what they wanted. We lived in an age of heroes. When we all grew up, we've mentioned it, we lived in an age of heroes, and they've systematically assassinated every single one and replaced them with the Captain Marvels and the Ray Palpatines and the all the beta males, and we've all rejected it. And we can't all be racist and bigots and homophobic. You can't all have internalized racism for rejecting any, like, it can't work on all of us. So clearly their ideology is not working. Just write good characters, but they can't, because what they think is good to us ain't good. And that's
there are
a lack of,
examples
it's a
that
lack of
totally-
creativity. It's a lack of the ability to tell good stories, and that's
Or
the major
will.
issue. That's going throughout all of Hollywood, really, because they couldn't take their ideas on their own and just go out there and just make something brand new and original. They have to attach it to some sort of a giant franchise, because otherwise nobody's going to pay any attention to this crap.
Yes.
Everybody's just going to reject it right out of hand. Like, what is this? Like, if the Acolyte had to stand on its own at this moment in time, who would be watching the Acolyte? We certainly wouldn't be watching it. Some people might check in and say, "Hey, look, this really this looks like
Ahsoka
it might
barely
be
stood
interesting."
up. I
If
watched
this
that
didn't have
show.
Star Wars attached to it, no one would
You know what I'm saying? I
pay
watched
any attention
Rebels.
to it or like it.
I liked Ahsoka, and I watched the live action. I was like, I don't like this at all. I don't care about these characters. So
Right.
even that failed.
Right.
That's Dave
yeah.
Filoni again, by the way, the savior who, at every moment when a horrible decision is made, he was the creative person that could have gone, no, that doesn't follow George's vision, and here's why. Instead, he went, there's other Force witches besides Night Sisters, and he enabled it. So,
But
Well,
there's
let's-
also, I mean, but one
Real
last
quick,
point. I
let's
mean,
look at the ratings. Let's look at the ratings
Yeah.
here. Alan, you compared it to Ahsoka. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So this is the first week's ratings. The Acolyte came in 6, just under Hitler and the Nazis, at 380.5 million. That's the first week of Ahsoka. The first week of Acolyte. The first week of Ahsoka, they got 829 million viewing minutes. That's well over twice as much as the Acolyte. The audience has dropped, and we know for a fact that it was written for women, and it was also written for queers, the LGBT community. And the question is, why didn't they come out and support this show?
Women are clearly watching Bridgerton.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
turns
Eric.
out that when you create something for a certain demographic, that demographic will watch it.
go figure.
You want a large female audience, you write what's appealing to the female audience.
was that not the
Well, if
Barbie
you want a
movie?
large gay and lesbian
they
audience, I
appealed
think
to
the
the
Acolyte
correct
reflects that as well.
audience?
I mean, if you want Star Wars numbers, though, if you want the Star Wars fans and appeal to them, give them something that the fans will like. I've never seen a company actively sabotage themselves. Does any other studio do this? Like, even before the Acolyte premiered, they were calling out, they were already attacking fans because they
Yeah.
knew what they made was an inferior show. It was low quality show. It was bad writing, bad direction, bad acting, all of that. And they knew they were going to get criticism. So they go out ahead and use those minorities as a shield instead of just admitting the fact, oh, it's just because the poor women are in a male dominated fan base. Well,
believe
look
the
at the
replacement
other
theory.
IPs. Look at the Fallout show and Arcane. These are female-led stories in a male-dominated fan base, and those are hugely successful. And also, women who like that stuff like that too. But it appeals to its fans. And lo and behold, if you just create a very entertaining, compelling, and well-written show, you'll be successful. So you can't use that argument anymore that, oh, just men hate women, because it clearly is not the case in these other successful properties with female leads and male fan bases.
Yeah, they raise the bigot shield, right? That's what I call it. It's a preemptive strike, right? So right before every Star Wars show, the bigot shield comes up, right? Right, Grace Randolph.
Yeah.
Right,
Why
Grace.
isn't the LGBT community watching it, Dante?
But they are. That's the numbers of them.
But that's what it is, right? It's a preemptive move. It's the worst marketing strategy I've ever seen in my life. I worked in marketing for 30 years.
It's not a marketing strategy. It's a replacement strategy. Geeks and Gamers was right. This is why they keep doing it. We're done. They don't want us anymore. And they think they can tank the losses and rebuild it with that queer modern audience. Good luck.
But the thing about
Doctor Who strategy too.
The thing about all that is that the numbers aren't there. You know, you have to make something that you have to make something that appeals. It's very strange that, and look, the people that go into the arts, having been in the arts myself for 36 years in the entertainment business, have certain predilections. And there's a majority of in the arts, you find the majority of people that are, let's call them offbeat. And I love that. I love that about the arts, and I've loved that about working in film, and it's one of the reasons I've had such a good time. But you have to realize, like, especially Disney, they are the people that are appealing by definition to the very masses. They're adapting. They made their money adapting classic fairy tales and making them even more palatable for modern audiences. And what they're doing to a franchise that was tailor-made for them. I mean, going back and allowing J.J. Abrams to do what he did with The Force Awakens was to retell the idea of Star Wars and give us, I mean, let's face it, it really started with Force Awakens. You're going to tell me that if you're a kid watching Star Wars for the first time and you get to the end of Return of the Jedi, when you then pop in or you just hit streaming, you're binging it, you're going to watch episode 7 and go, wait a minute. First of all, Luke just saved the galaxy, all of our heroes, and now you're saying it's 30 years later and there's this faux empire that's just there?
Getting rid of the everything was the first big mistake.
Everything that you did, I mean, the EU did, they talked about, and you know what, allegorically, what happens when the greatest generation that won World War II builds the middle class, makes peace? What happens when 30 years go by and you find yourself in the 1980s? How do you maintain peace? There's really great stories to be told that they just dispensed with. And we saw it. It was in those EU books. How do you maintain peace?
We
How
should
do
be
you
watching
keep order?
Rebuild the Jedi Order, and then
100%.
another series have the New Republic struggling, and then you introduce all the outside forces and all that. But yeah, we've
100%.
got decades of stories of Luke and Marjay and rebuilding the correct Jedi Order, where he learned all the mistakes of the previous one. And yeah, no, we don't get that. We don't get that.
And it was all
Rey
there.
Can do it. Maybe Rey can do it in her new movie, learning all these. That's replacement. It is.
That's what they want to do. They want to give it to Rey. They want to hand Luke's story over to Rey. That's absolutely in the works for this thing. You know,
well, they changed the Star Wars timeline to reflect that. They, the Star Wars timeline, they have those little symbols to represent each era. Well, now it's no longer the new Jedi Order era for Luke. They now, now it's Rey's era.
It's Rey's era.
Is the new Jedi Order.
Insidious. That's why I don't even consider it Star Wars. Anything pre 2012 and back is Star Wars. It's really good, cohesive, good stories all the way up to Fate of the Jedi. Because this will never.
I'll still give them Rogue One. I'll still give them that
because of the scene at the very end with Vader.
No, I just really like the whole. I felt like it was I felt like it was connected to A New Hope, right? Almost directly. So it wasn't a perfect movie.
EU too. That was Kyle Katarn's story.
It wasn't a perfect movie, but I still stand by Rogue One. I like the characters. I thought the story was solid. But that's all I'll give them.
It didn't seem malicious in what they were doing either. Like, it didn't seem like it was made just to dismantle what came before. It was trying to add to the story of how they got the Death Star plans and all that. It was like connecting to it. So, but ever since then, it's just they're either trying to plug up their massive holes from this plot holes from the sequel trilogy, and just dismantling what came before in order to do that. So they're dismantling the Jedi Order in its entirety, saying that they were horrible, and now we got to replace it with this new storyline in this new EU.
That is modern day politics. That's cultural marks. You can't be racist to Jedi because they have all the power. The Sith are the victims because there's only 2 of them, and it's all it's going to be a gross revisionist history. Yeah, Yoda said that the Jedi of the prequel trilogy, some of them were becoming a little arrogant and or stagnant, and they had drifted from the will of the Force. A lot of that's because Palpatine was doing a bunch of dark side stuff and obscuring their abilities. There's a lot of things, but they were not corrupt, even if they had drifted from. But the point is, Anakin bringing balance would have fixed all that, and then Luke learned all the correct lessons, and his Jedi were much different.
I mean, they had flaws, and being good doesn't mean you don't have flaws or make mistakes. I think that's what a lot of people think. They like my tweet was like, I just said the Jedi are the good guys, and people said, well, they weren't perfect. They also did this and this and this. Like, well, yeah, our heroes aren't perfect. Usually that's why we can relate to them so well, because even in these fantastic circumstances and fantastic worlds that we're in, we can still relate to these heroes because we ourselves are not perfect and have to deal with challenging circumstances in order to do the right thing too.
So, 2 things have me baffled. If I could just say 2 things. I have never witnessed in all my years of covering entertainment. Rob, you've been around as long as I have. What company has had such disdain for its most rabid fans? Why not satisfy those fans? And the other thing that's missing, one other quick thing, morality. A morality is a thing we all agree. This thing is good, evil. They don't even know. But the disdain, I can't get over it. So
it's an odd place to be. I mean, look, one of the things that it drives me crazy is Lucas looked towards other, whether it was Joseph Campbell, whether it was the Iliad and the Odyssey, whether it was the films of Kurosawa and the Tokugawa shogunate and the idea of Bushido, and all of the things George Lucas looked towards were things from human history, and they were stories that permeated other stories for centuries. And that's why he created a simple mythology that would continue to appeal and carry on those story tropes that have already existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. What I find so strange about modern Star Wars is they're no longer looking at the things that George Lucas was inspired by. Star Wars is so far up its own ass with its own ridiculousness that I feel like there's no reason to watch these stories because they have no greater meaning. I mean, whereas why aren't you readapting Rashomon or something? If you're going to tell us a mystery about somebody who murdered a Jedi, look at Rashomon, look at High and Low, look at Throne of Blood. I don't know. When George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones, he was thinking about the War of the Roses. There was things that were analogous in European history that he was delving into, and we can all understand Game of Thrones because we've seen it played out throughout human history. I watch Star Wars now, and I'm like, what is this? What am I watching?
Propaganda.
What am I supposed to take? Well, beyond propaganda, they're still telling stories. I mean, but they're not. I mean, propaganda is one thing. Look, you can tell great stories with propaganda in them, but the stories still have to be good. I mean, John Wayne was a propagandist, but we loved his movies.
I'm afraid to tell you what
watching him.
Her ultimate story is for this one, because I think it leads to a horrible place. It's going to confirm that Force is female. That the story they're telling is that the Force, the thread, is in fact female, which is why Mother Anisia is the one to be able to do it. That you need to be female to influence midichlorians. I think that is their ultimate end goal, because otherwise, like you said, what the hell is this story other than just subvert Anakin's story?
I mean, it doesn't make sense, because if there's if the Force is created by life in the universe, I mean, it's all life. It's not just humanoid life, and it wouldn't have a gender. It's like Curlian photography in the 70s, Chris. You remember that? Here's the aura of plants. You can take Curlian auras of everything that's alive, and I thought George Lucas had to have been thinking about that when he was writing about the Force, and there truly is energy created by all life, and the idea that you're genderizing it is a weird idea in the first place.
Yes,
it's bizarre.
It is.
Sorry, I cut you off, DA. You were about to say something. My apologies on that.
No. I'm just
earlier.
again in agreement with the crew. one of the things I find interesting is that if you're trying to create Star Wars for a brand new audience that, is the modern audience, okay, what is the modern audience going to connect to? Because like Rob was saying, Star Wars connected us to a piece of humanity that carries throughout all of history. It's not just for our time. You can show Star Wars to a kid 50 years from now, and they'll still get something out of it. The original Star Wars, I mean. They'll still get something out of it because it's a tale as old as time. And so what are you connecting people to right now? If you're trying to build a fan base within the Star Wars universe, then what you should be trying to do is connect to some sort of mythology or telemythology right now that will, resonate with the people of this particular generation if you don't want to go back and do old Star Wars. But the reality is you're not doing any of that. You're really just doing propaganda. You're all you're doing is just trying to, tell your side
Defund the
what
Jedi.
you feel is a negative, like a negative experience for my side. And so I want to, have a counterpoint to what Star Wars is. This is a counterpoint to Star Wars. This is subverting Star Wars and trying to turn all the heroes into bad guys, or at least make them completely, irrelevant or fallible, terrible beings. Instead of
It's the
just,
gimmick to
well,
try and
let's
promote the brand. That, and they're all looking for a new angle on Star Wars that hasn't been done, and they've taken the low hanging fruit one of deconstruction and gimmickry. Oh, what if the Jedi are bad? Oh, that's an interesting idea. That Hollywood executives think that way because they're so desperate for some sort of new take. The problem is that they're forgetting what it is. Like, how do we appease the core audience? We don't know anything about that. Everything is a risk. So we try to mitigate that by going into gaps that haven't been explored yet and not analyzing, well, why haven't they been explored yet? What could the blowback be of that? Where's the forethought when it comes to that? Disney doesn't have that. Never did. Even in the Walt Disney days, they didn't care. They literally cobbled together Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and made a one movie out of it. And then they did Sleeping Beauty a few years later.
Yeah, but you don't think they would have had a plan.
Real quick. We will get to super chats at the end. So thank you for your patience. Great comments. The chat is on fire. So thank you for that. I want to comment on one chat here. Chelsea M says, the absence of morals was never more apparent until I saw Lord of the Rings this weekend. Such a stark contrast to Disney Star Wars. I went to this is what I did for Father's Day. I took my kids to Universal Studios theme park. It was great, whatever. But I'm experiencing clips. I went on the studio tour. They had clips from Back to the Future, all these classic movies. They all had the music. I was getting choked up. They can't make movies like those older movies now. It was so sad. I was sitting there like that. We have lost a common morality, which is, or at least the people making entertainment now don't have it. And Chelsea, thank you. That reminded me of my experience yesterday. So
just saw them in the theaters, extended edition. All three of them in one day in a row, man. And hearing the audience cry at all the right moments, laugh at things that have since become memes, like when Sam says potatoes and little things like that. And just, the clapping. It's like, wow, I remember when we had good things.
That was the last era of the role model. I mean, when I started pitching in 2006, I would pitch role models and people would be like, well, how do people relate to that? It's like, you relate to a role model because you want to become a role model. That's why. Where's the good moralistic role models anymore? Where was the last franchise that had a role model that parents would be like, yeah, you know what? My kid isn't going to model me. I at least want them to model that.
But we need to listen to Gandalf, because as I was thinking, man, what a shit time we live in right now. Frodo said, I wish I was never born. And Gandalf did all we can do. We all wish we weren't born in these crap times. And I wish we weren't born right now in this horrible destruction. But maybe I'm happy because we could see the resurgence if we just hold the line and don't let their ideology win. Just go back to good storytelling. You make everyone, like you said, diverse, all the sexualities. I don't care. If it is a good storytelling, you make us care about characters, we'll be there and we'll champion it for you. And I've seen that proven.
There's one big problem with that, though. One huge problem with all of this that we're talking about is the money isn't behind morality.
Correct.
The money's not behind it. If the money's not behind it, we're not going to get it on film.
Yeah, but the money will pay for it. I mean,
it will.
we will certainly put our money up.
Okay, we keep saying that, right. But again, I'm asking it one more time: how much money can Disney afford to keep losing? Right?
They don't have a question.
Enough to destroy it.
I'm just saying.
Lucasfilm.
They're obviously Lucasfilm is not changing tracks, so they can afford to lose more.
Yeah. The thing is,
right?
Inside Out shows that people want to see Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that Inside Out 2 shows that people will pay Disney money to put out good content and without a message behind it.
Right.
Does Disney want to continue making movies that earn $2 billion or potentially $1 billion? Sorry. I think, I don't know. I question whether they do or they don't.
Okay, but for every Inside Out 2, what are we getting?
Yeah, the
Every
ratio's
one
not
good
the
one,
same.
right?
Right.
I feel Lucasfilm is different because Kathleen Kennedy just seems intent on destroying George Lucas's mythology
She
and
really
IP.
does.
So,
Yeah.
like, Disney owns Marvel too, but from what you've said, Chris, you've heard that they're trying to course correct.
Oh no, they
No, they are. They are.
Or
course
will.
They fired
Or they
15
will.
producers specifically who were activists.
And we're hearing
And they
that a
fired
lot of
people-
different places.
They fired people who were not a fan of the comics. Remember there was that montage Gary did in one of his videos where it's like, oh, I was told not to read the comics. Don't read the comics, whatever. All of those people are gone. There's a major, and it's like turning an aircraft carrier. You know, it's like it's going to take time. It will take a couple of years to notice the change, but changes were made at Marvel. Nothing has changed at Lucasfilm. And if the video of that, it's gone private, we can't find it. You got to find this video of this former Lucasfilm employee did an hour-long podcast, and EBN, Echo Based Network, shout out to them, covered the highlights of it, where a guy is just saying it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So
Night is
that was
darkest
knee
before
pain,
the
right?
dawn.
Knee
Yeah,
pain.
it's-
That's gone already. I was
Yeah,
literally
it-
just about to.
No,
catch that.
that video, it's gone private. So
Oh, it's
hopefully
gone
someone
private,
got
okay.
it. But
Wow.
speaking of morality and Father's Day, I have not seen this video yet, so I don't know what this is.
I have a message for Mr. Chris Gore. This is my eulogy. Star Wars is dead, and the world will mourn. Lazy writing got us feeling so torn. Wokeness killed the show. What a fucking bore. Angry fans rise. We demand more.
That was
Bars.
very poetic, Darth Vader. Very poetic.
Not quite Disney re-speecher just yet. Just yet.
Oh my God, this AI stuff.
It's so bad. It loses the nuance.
It's fun. It's fun.
fun.
I'm just like, where do we go after this? Alan and I have seen episode 4, as you all will tomorrow night. Alan, do you want to give us a preview?
Yeah, there's someone dies. And,
The audience.
yeah, the audience. Honestly, I mean, I've mentioned many
soul.
times. After watching episode 3, I was done. I really could care less what happens in episode 4. But of course, the third of the 4 Jedis, one of them dies.
It's not Yord, is it? He's my favorite. Yord
No,
Van.
one of the
I can't
original
wait.
Jedi.
The Yord Horde. They're all that's left of the Disney
And
fans.
I'll give you a hint. It's the man with the Wookiee head on his, with the Wookiee mask on his head.
No, it's Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
That's the Harry and the Hendersons. Like,
Not
that
Kel
makes-
Did they set him on
Naka.
fire?
Oh, and of course we have pronouns in episode 4.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
I'm
already did
dreading
that in
more
an animated
flashbacks.
Jedi
We're
short.
going to see May's perspective, I'm sure.
we
and
have
I'm sure
to.
that's going to be just even more scathing towards the Jedi, because
They
I assume
have
they
to.
are responsible for the witches were just lying there on the ground. We have no idea what happened. And Torbin's the one that has his face all screwed up, and we didn't see that. So I'm dreading that.
I assume Master Indara has him slice into their power, and in conjunction with May setting the fire, and apparently all those bricks were made of some form of flammable peat or local dung or something, but in conjunction with the two things, and that's why the Jedi feel, because otherwise there's no reason for Torbin to take that fun little vial, other than he didn't want to be a part of the show either.
Also, I just wanted to explain how a mountain catches on fire.
It's a mountain of coal.
A mountain caught on
And they
fire.
were trying to keep secret, and they literally chose to make their home into this huge fortress on the side of this huge mountain. It can be
Very
more
dry.
conspicuous. Like, why would you choose that to be your
By the way,
hideout?
I
There's so
didn't
many
actually
things that
think
don't make
they
sense.
I didn't think they built that, by the way. I thought that they
No, they
found that
did, for
planet and just
sure.
moved into the ancient ruins. Like, yeah, that'll do it,
Yeah.
because there's
Why
a
would
lot
you
of that
choose to
going
make
on.
the
but
most conspicuous place
Yeah,
your
'cause they're
home if you are
narcissists.
in hiding?
narcissists for their they need it for their ascension ritual that got them banned in the first place.
Yeah, and of course the obvious, it just catches fire, and we saw like little random fires like around the way it happened. Just nothing made sense, and I just feel they just want something, a certain outcome to happen, but they don't want to think about what's required to like make things make sense. You can't just say things. You can't just make things happen. You have to tell us why.
They just want things to happen, but they don't want to think about it. We want Rey to be popular, but they didn't want to think of how to make that happen.
You can't convince me that ChatGPT didn't help write the script. You cannot convince me.
I feel like AI would be better. I don't know.
It really wouldn't actually.
I think it's all Leslie. She
I
said
think
it's
probably
Kill Bill
both.
and Frozen, and she got permission to use canon, both Legends and New. So she's going to stomp all over Plagueis and Darth Tenebrous, which is who should be the Sith right now. And she's going to poach all the things.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, this show was started filming before ChatGPT started leaking out to screenwriters. So unfortunately, this is pretty much all her. Because again, she pitched this during a moratorium that Disney publicly stated they're not taking any solicited or non-solicited pitches for their Star Wars or any Disney properties. And Leslie Headland said, "Well, screw that. I'm just going to walk up to KK and give her my Acolyte show." Yep. And then they did that. And I remember I got that notice. Like I got that notice.
And Kathy said, this is to her original draft. This is a great Star Wars story. Now go back and write a Leslie Headland story. And that's when she put in all that dumb stuff about the Kill Bill meets Frozen and the sisters being a lesbian relationship analogy and all that other stuff. That is when she did that second. And that's what we have now.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, if you want to make a same-sex couple your protagonists, that's fine. But there's got to be a reason why you're accentuating that trait in them. How does that relate to the story? Is one of them going to be in harm's way? And you show, I mean, there's nothing wrong with all of these elements in a story if they're germane to the story that's being told. Yeah. And I feel like all of this, it's tokenism, it's pandering, and they're trying to make it. I'm like, okay, if you look like Verbal said, I made the comment on my own show, physical media show on Sunday. I have a whole shelf of lesbian vampire movies that have been made by John Rowland or Daughters of Darkness. There's a whole Hammer films, crazy lesbian nuns like Ken Russell's The Devils.
Keep going. I'm going to write this down for research.
I mean, I'm just saying. There's a long tradition. Blue is the Warmest Color is my favorite comic book adaptation. So it's like, come on. That's great, but what does that have to do with the story that you're telling? What is that about? Like, if truly there are women that if two women can create some kind of a Christ-like birth, what does that mean for the galaxy? Is that I mean, how does that? What are the larger ramifications to the Force? They can't be.
They didn't think about any of that.
That's my problem.
Their focus was agenda first. It was agenda. The rest of it will figure itself out. We're here for the agenda and the message. We could care less.
By doing that, you're ruining your story. If you lead with an agenda, you've already made your story less good.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think anybody cares about the traits of a character if the character's great.
Right.
But if you're leading with an agenda that doesn't fit the franchise or the IP that you're working in, then it doesn't work. And that's writing 101, right?
No, I was going to double down on what Rob said about the fact that the two leads were lesbians are irrelevant.
Yeah.
Arcane is the best example of that. Two of the main characters are lesbian, and you know what? I could describe both of those characters without even mentioning that they're gay. That's how they're good characters. That's how you know they're good characters, because them being gay is the least interesting thing about them. And that's a show full of strong women, but they're all believable.
Yes.
Yep.
And that features a good sister story too.
Yes.
They're just schooling these people. Like, that's why we are not accepting your excuses anymore. It's just bad. And you should be called out for it. You've delivered this inferior product that is just poorly thought out, even poorly executed. And there is great entertainment out there. So we can take our views and our business elsewhere.
That's also why the bigot shield doesn't work.
Yep.
It
They
doesn't
don't have the
work.
same power too. So we've heard them say, they've been saying it for so long. How many times can you be called the same thing before it's like, oh well, that means nothing now?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, they've devalued it. The other aspect is that I'm not seeing enough from the people of that persuasion calling out and saying, this is how you view us. This is how you want to portray us in this light. This is insulting.
Yes.
Right.
Very insulting.
Pedro
It's
called
really-
half of America Nazis, and they had no problem with it. So clearly, they share maybe his views.
Yes, no one ever gets in trouble for towing the company line. Like, that's the hardest thing I've seen general audiences try to understand. It's like, Pedro Pascal said those horrible things. Why aren't they upset? Because Pedro
Their
Pascal
ideology.
is saying what Disney agrees with.
Yeah.
Why would they punish them for that? Nobody. If you went to your boss and you found out that he hated something and you like your job, you're going to agree that you hate the same thing because you want to keep your job. That's
And I
how it
argue
works.
that's Dave Filoni, by the way. Someone said that he's a yes man. He will
Yes.
do whatever to the best of his ability. So Star Wars right now, he's executing it to the best of what Disney and Kathy, who I do believe George must have said something to her one day and she never forgot. And she goes, I'll show you, because she has just systematically destroyed every single part of that man's legacy. And there's no even way to cope or pretend around that. Like, every way you look at it, it's been, every little piece has been taken out like a Jenga until it all just,
yeah.
Real quick, EBN is in the chat, Echo Base Network. Thanks for the shout out, friends. Hail to our friend RMB. Hail, chat. We will win in the end. Go to EBN, Echo Base Network. They just did a video where they broke down highlights of the former Lucasfilm employee that has decided to speak out. I think it's not just fans that have had enough. Former employees of Lucasfilm have had enough. The ones who were there when they saw the company burning down from the inside, and they have to be gutted for that. So great job, EBN.
Lucasfilm Files win, Alan. Lucasfilm Files win, just like the D Files. Please, please.
Well, yeah, there is a chat here at the top. I want to point out that someone else is doing a Disney. It's James O'Keefe is doing something on Disney, like taking a page from Alan Ng's The D-Files. So
I think he's actually going into Disney. And,
yeah. So
you exposed how illegal, like the way they're enforcing it and going about getting to these mythical numbers of equity they want. There's no way to do that legally. And so I can't wait to see what
we'll see what happens. But we have a lot of super chats here. So we're an hour in. Let's get through some of these and we'll get back to the conversation. Alan, we'll start at the very top. Here we go.
All right, from Stay at Home Hippo for 10. Used to be Jesus. What? I can't read that. Was talking about how bad the Acolyte with some volunteers at a farm, and was getting annoyed by just thinking of how dumb all the years since Force Awakens to now have been. From our own Charmin for £4.99 pounds. Hey chaps. Hi, chaps. I'm here briefly, but I'm watching Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and ATM. The coffee table was interesting, but I liked it. Thanks for the rec. Keep them coming. Oh, you watch Coffee Table.
Well, ATM, Alan, means
at the moment.
It can mean at the moment.
Automatic teller machine.
That's what
it can mean. Automatic teller machine. It can mean at the moment or something else. Don't look it up.
Or arm the machines.
Right.
From Sean Z for $4.99. Love for film threat. Chris and Alan, also Verbal Riot and Dante. Yes, both Verbal Riot and Dante. Thanks. From Stickle Jana for $1.99. Star Wars said it's not me, it's you. That's right. Lord J for $5. Thank you. Why are there two RMBs? Quick save verisimilitude so we can tell the difference.
Verisimilitude. Wait, you do it, Rob. You're the real R&B. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving on real quick.
For £1.99, we can't let Headland near KOTOR or Knights of the Old Republic. I know that one.
I'm proud of you, Alan. I thought you were going to struggle. I was going to say, good for you. Yeah. Please don't let her touch that. Really good game.
I've spent 2 days playing that straight. Hitman 316 for 10.
Nice.
When it comes to investors, toy companies, etc., when does someone say enough money loss is enough, and things need absolute change? Where's a fallout? May the thread of a plethora be with you all. I'm struggling today.
I'll do it then. Okay. I only had a stroke 2 months ago. I'll try to read.
Yeah, I've had dyslexia all my life. So.
Patrick Lemire for $4.99. James O'Keefe's new project is a Disney expose. Yeah. I wonder if he was inspired by Film Threats D-Files. Well, Alan, what do you think?
Yes, I was his direct inspiration.
Okay, great. Disaster Area for £9.99. Thank you. When Last Jedi came out, articles called it the first feminist Star Wars. Deconstruction of the patriarchy ahead with a photo of Luke. That's when Star Wars died. Everything after is the wake. Yes. Western Civilization for 2. Thanks for the shout out. Yes, Star Wars is dead. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. So House of the Dragon, says Base Player 2011 Fi for $4.99. Yeah, a quick House of the Dragon. Go around the horn. And I saw it. It was good. It wasn't bad. It was good. Anyone else?
I forgot most of the previous season, so when I was watching the premiere last night, I was like, I can't remember which son died, and I don't care.
Yeah. Same. Anyone else?
Which guy was this, and what house is he in?
Yeah, I watched it. It was good. It was not. I mean, Gary and Ryan were hyping it up, but apparently it was different in the books. It was even gruesome because they kept saying it was gonna be worse than the Red Wedding. I was like, that was not worse than the Red Wedding, but it was good. It was competent. There were a couple scenes I liked, but it did not open with the like, oh my god, that they said it was going to. Yeah. But maybe they're saving. Sometimes they take some of the shock and save it for something else and another one. But yeah, not disappointing, just not blowing me away.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was
exactly how I felt.
It was a good hour. It was a good hour of TV. It's not, it makes me, okay, let's see what happens next week. I'm interested in what happens next week, but it's not blowing me away. It's not like, oh my God, most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's like, okay, good hour of television. I'm good.
Next, Sir Chai 87 for 5. Let's be frank. They are using LGBTQ black men and black women for their agenda over straight, white, and black men. Time to fight back or lose. Yeah, there's no
completely correct.
I think strong black men are just not wanted.
Oh, they're terrified of a strong black man. That's why they feminize them at every opportunity.
Hollywood. Look, you can't get Blade movie made. Mahershala Ali, Oscar winner. You can't make a basic Blade movie. The Blade King, and then they took the most interesting character from the sequel, from Force Awakens, that trilogy, and Finn was totally sidelined and shrunk on the poster.
And not only that, they made him a buffoon. He was a buffoon.
A buffoon. Yeah. I cleaned the toilets. They JJ literally did that in the first movie. He worked in janitorial, but we met him. It was so interesting. He's a stormtrooper that went against the programming. We've never seen that in Star Wars.
Plus, wouldn't droids do that kind of menial work, like being a janitor?
Yes.
Or a mechanic.
Why is a human needed to do this?
Look
at what we're just seeing right now recently in the box office after, however many girl boss movies we've had in a row. Bad Boys for Life, okay? Or Bad Boys Ride or Die or whatever. Back-to-back weeks does amazing numbers, blows the numbers out of the water. Nobody saw this coming. And it's like 2 black male leads, right? 2 black guys, buddy cop film, being heroes, being the good guys, the kind of stuff that Hollywood doesn't make anymore, right? The kind of stuff that we used to get all the time, and now we're not getting it anymore. But look, out of nowhere, Bad Boys comes in, and nobody expected it to do anything. It's completely blowing everybody out of the water. And it's like, well, not everybody, but you know what I mean? It's like
it overcame the Will Smith factor too.
And he overcame the slap. It's like, because we are missing, like Dante mentioned this when I was talking about this on the DA's office last Saturday. We're missing masculinity. Okay, we need masculine heroes, and all of a sudden, it's in this era of girl boss films, here comes just like this regular little buddy cop movie, and the thing is overperforming. Okay, people are going out of their way to go and watch this, and it's good. I haven't seen it yet.
It's good. I saw it last night. Loved it.
I was supposed to see it right after the DA's office. I got caught up in something, but I'm gonna probably go and see it after this. Now I'm gonna really see it. But everybody's just talking about it, and it's like, see, this is what we need. Masculinity is back on the table. Can we get more masculine movies, please?
And agenda-free storytelling. Just tell a story between
and
like, a
agenda-free
bromance
storytelling.
or
Shout
whatever
out
it
to
is, yeah.
Inside Out too. Exactly.
Oh yeah, right. That's proving them right. They
Just-
can still do it.
Just to remind people, funeral for a franchise, Wednesday, July 17th. And Alan will be, well, he's gonna have
I'll have
to
a bigger Bible than that. Yeah.
yeah, much bigger Bible, the Jedi text.
Needs to be
He'll be-
obnoxiously large though, so you can like
Right. So I'm gonna read a few more of these. Came in from Jay Bermudez for 40. Hola, Senor Gore, Senor Bordetto, and the rest of the gang. With all the diminishing returns on Lucasfilm Indy 4, how the hell does Kathleen Kennedy still have a job there? Seriously, what does she know? May the many be with you. Yeah, it's a mystery.
They're true believers. Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are true believers. That's why they say they don't put
I don't
politics
know if
in
Bob
anything.
Iger's. Bob Iger's not a true believer.
He might be a true believer in that this is the fast track to keeping whatever power and money he has, but there's a reason he hasn't iced her out and had an ultimate comeback
Because he
story and
can't,
been the
man.
savior.
That's the thing. No one realizes no one can touch this woman.
Right.
How? What does she have?
The tape. Apparently.
Badger, I will tell you what she has. She got started with Steven Spielberg and Amblin back in the late 1970s. So she has basically witnessed every subsequent generation of filmmaker entering Hollywood and has either made their career or killed it before it even got started. That is how come she is in the position she is. You cannot just get rid of her.
It's been
her name's in a lot of credits.
Saying. Like, how long does this credit last? How long does
it
this
lasts
clout
forever?
last?
William Goldman got an Oscar for adapting a poorly adapted screenplay of a very superior book, and he still rides that Oscar to this day. That is how long it goes. It's pretty much forever.
Thank you, Jay. That's very generous. Also, I think Kathleen Kennedy, she has dirt on everyone.
Yeah.
I
At the very
believe
least, yeah.
she has had candid conversations with people. And look, myself, have I made inappropriate jokes? Have I said, look at my Twitter timeline? I have said cancelable things many times.
Oh, just before we went live, you said, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying that, like, I bet she has something on everybody. Thank you,
She
Jay.
knows where
Very
the bodies
generous.
are buried.
She knows
Yeah.
where the bodies are buried.
Obi776 for 2. The Lucasfilm employees video is now private. Yes. So hopefully someone has. Hopefully someone
Echo
has
Base
that.
Network has it.
Various crazy network. Various crazy people for 10. The next Blade will star Lil Nas, the gay walker. He works the catwalk by night and slays manpires at night by day.
Hey, we laugh, but we know this could happen, right?
Could happen.
This could easily happen.
I read that badly. I'm sorry. The Lord Akira for 5. All fan hoods and gamers have finally united in sadness.
Really
and
have
Darth
been.
Bender, member for 6 months. That's it. Member for 6 months. We'll read more. So where are we with all of this? Episode 4 is coming. Will the ratings continue to fall, or are people going to tune in? This has happened. People tune in out of morbid curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I think what'll happen is people
3 so much that I think you're going to see a big drop off at episode 4.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think people might wait until it all drops, and then maybe come back at some point in time in the future. But I don't think people are going to make it this appointment television. All right, Tuesday is here. I got to go watch The Acolyte. I don't think anybody's doing that. You know, some of the hardcore people, we will probably, try to keep up with it. But for the most part, I think a lot of just regular general normies, they've already tuned out. They said, all right, this is stupid.
I did my 8 seconds. I did my 8 seconds on the bull. I'm out.
Yeah, it was so boring.
Echo Base Network said that what Disney, I think he said it, but a smart move for Disney would just release them all right now. Just get the entire series out and make it available right now.
Here's the
But
thing.
I hope they
What
don't. Let's
Disney
ride
show,
this.
What Disney Star Wars show after the last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian has had an increase of ratings from subsequent episodes instead of a decrease? It hasn't happened yet.
Words out.
It's always on a decline.
The only thing we know coming is that lightsaber fight that they said was going to be better than the Phantom Menace, which even if you don't like the Phantom Menace, most people will say that Maul Qui-Gon is at least something of note. So I think people will tune in for that, and it'll probably be super disappointing, and then everyone will bounce right back
Well,
out.
they touted the Kenobi, Obi-Wan
Yeah.
Kenobi series. Oh, the rematch of the century, and it was like
sad.
so gloomy and foggy, couldn't see anything, and wasn't even close.
Well, they
It
didn't
wasn't
get
even
it
close to
hard,
Revenge of the
so,
Sith. How
yeah.
can you
Nah, you're
invoke
right.
Revenge of the Sith? And what they delivered, of course, they had half of the budget that this show has, which is
nuts.
astounding to me.
Which
If you're
is
gonna
You
hype
have
it up
half
that
the
much.
audience from an already low-rated Ahsoka watching this.
You got
And it had
Ewan
way more
McGregor
viewers.
and Hayden back. And it had a lower budget than the Acolyte.
And
It
not
had
one
way more
Clone War
viewership though
flashback.
too, because people will tune in for the things, and the fans would tune in for that. I don't know what the drop off was from Kenobi to this one, but I know Ahsoka wasn't as much as Kenobi. It just continued to decline.
Well, if Reva had been in
viewers.
Ahsoka, people would have watched it, because obviously that was the standout star of the Kenobi show.
Yeah.
Great actress, by the way, in Queen's Gambit. Didn't realize that was the same actress. Like, oh wow. And we've seen this with Ahsoka too, where it's like, you take great actresses and they suck in these things if it's not a well-written character.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, back to supers. We'll try to get through these. Various crazy people for 10. Star Wars used to be great characters with compelling stories. Now it's woke ideologues imposing woke agenda into a beloved story. And if we don't like it, we are shamed, blamed, insulted.
Pretty much.
Thank you. Graph Web for 2. For F's sake, cancel Disney Plus. AJDZA for $14.99. Thank you. Very generous. What do you think is going through KK and Leslie Headland's heads now, given the negative reaction? I bet they're cackling to themselves, saying this proves they're right and need to lecture harder.
Yeah, I don't think they care.
I
They
agree.
see the
They love it.
15% audience rating, and they don't care. They never cared what the audience.
And
Care-
they're also
wanted.
they'll be shielded from all the negativity and be told
We're
it's all
evil.
trolls.
We're all evil bigots and racists and
Yeah.
sexist, and we're threatened by strong women characters and diversity. So they're very happy that they're upsetting us.
Yeah.
Clip that. Go ahead.
Sir Chai 87 for 2. The Wiz 1978 was an exception and not the rule to film. I love The Wiz.
I love The
When
Wiz.
I was
One of
a
my
kid-
favorite movies.
It was great. Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, also the design, the way it looked. I mean, I love the original Wizard of Oz, but The Wiz was completely different, and that's what made it unique.
And that's the thing. The
Great
Wiz
songs.
didn't take away from The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't take away from it. It added to
Precisely.
something different to it, and it was good.
And the songs
It
are
was
good.
a lot of fun.
Yes.
On down the
Great.
road. I saw the Wiz
Man.
more times in the theater.
Great soundtrack.
Loved it.
I saw it in the theater when I was a kid, and I loved it. So, yeah. Pilgrim Media for 5. Can you please tell me why Grace Randolph is not a shill? I believe
I can't
she
tell you
is.
why, because I think she
I
is, but
Again,
Well,
no, I
she
can tell
blocked
you why.
you,
I
Dante.
can tell you why. I can tell you why. Because she believes what she says.
I was gonna
That's
say, I
why
think she
she's not
believes
still.
it. That's why she's not. 'Cause
Yeah.
She actually believes what she's saying. Yeah.
Well,
She'll
yeah,
that's
still
fair.
believe what they say.
If she a colleague can get a
Yeah.
pass. No, she
Disney
does
is
not.
She has
saving
some
money with
interesting
Grace
takes.
Randolph because they don't have to pay her.
Very interesting takes.
There's crazy people for 5. They turned the Jedi into CPS and forced the Force into a Force onesie with ears and a tail with alternate pronouns. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they made
you're
them
probably
straight
right
up
for it.
predators in this last one. I was indifferent
Oh, God,
to
man.
Soul, but when Soul handed over his deadly lightsaber to try to
That
lure,
was
Why I heard it
OSHA
push the
in,
button
like-
immediately. Yeah.
like he's
Oops.
with candy, like oh come on,
Well,
come
the
with
whole
us.
discussion of when the Jedi
Okay,
took
that
me
really
at 10, I saw other
Oh.
children like me.
Yeah.
But you know what was
Oh,
weird?
Jedi
Like nobody would that just undermines the credibility. Nobody would hand a child a weapon
right.
Yeah,
of any
the way he
kind.
was
Right.
doing
Gun,
it too.
things
It
like
was
that
come
and a
out,
loaded
children.
gun.
Come
Yeah,
out,
it was.
children. He hands
but,
her his weapon.
Yeah.
but nobody would do that. When you watch stuff like that, you're like, come on, where's the actual common sense? I bump on things like that. I'm like, this does not. It shatters verisimilitude.
Mhm.
Nobody would do that just as a matter of policy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have broken into their village in the first place.
Yeah,
No, I've
but
been
you
to some
don't hand a
places in
kid a
Florida
pocket
where I've
knife.
seen adults hand firearms to 4-year-olds. I mean,
He had
but
the
that's
safety
different.
on.
Yeah,
You guys
it'd be
are
like if a cop
overreacting.
handed a child his gun.
Yeah. He took the bullets
There's
out.
good questions in here. Let me get some more of these. Philip
Not to
Morris
mention the way Soul was creeping in the woods, looking at these two little girls. It just felt
Yeah.
weird. It
They
felt
stalked
weird.
him. They
man.
lied. They broke into their village in the middle of the night. They're just all of the way they were portrayed was awful.
They knew what they were doing.
Philip Morris had disdains for its fans, i.e., smokers, says Michael Nemo for 5. Thank you. Daryl the Derelict for 5. Howdy, everyone. The Acolyte gave us a great way to tell Disney that we're done. Hashtag cut the thread. Cincinnati's 5-star barber for 999. Rogue One is my top example to all of these fools. It's the epitome of diversity. The writing, storytelling, characters, and acting were great, and it felt like Star Wars, but with zero agendas pushed. Yes, true.
Yeah.
Great Deadpoolio for 2. Angry Badger's favorite Latinx is here. There you go. Boat Night for 2. X-Men was propaganda done right, in my opinion.
X-Men 97 was very good.
From Rumble, Joe Homas K. Dear Robert, haven't we all figured out that we're seeing the personal screed of Kathleen Kennedy's woman first views?
Well, I mean, look, I honestly, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I don't, because storytelling is storytelling, and there's been great stories with female protagonists. I mean, you want to go back and tell a great story, tell the story of Joan of Arc in the Star Wars universe. I mean, there's great. We ourselves, whether it's La Femme Nikita, which just came out in 4K on a great Steelbook last week, or whether it's Alien. You look at the funny thing. I've said this before, but Aliens, everyone loves Aliens, and here's a movie literally where the power of the feminine, the power of motherhood, is what gives Ripley the strength to go face off against another mother, the xenomorph, both protecting their young. I mean, it's literally the power of the feminine. There's not a more bigger girl boss than Ripley at the end of Aliens, squaring off against another mother. And if you miss that, and no one ever had a problem with that.
But that's not what they're doing. That's what the complaint is.
What about
is
the
that's
what
I'm saying. I mean, but it's tell a great story. Anybody will buy off on something if the story and characters are great. Just like I say, you cannot put your universe before your characters and story. You can't put your agenda before your characters and story either, because you're compromising your story if you do that.
Caveat Ties for a buck said, if they wanted to go with mystery, Star Wars should have done a galaxy hoping noir detective tale, ex-Jedi being the private dick. TLJ Screwjob, KK sat in front of George Lucas, looked him in the eyes, and lied, saying the important thing is to respect these characters and make them live on as you envisioned. I saw that video.
She lies a lot.
It's so sad. Oilers Workshop for $9.99. But Rob, this is a human story about humans doing human things, human females doing female only things, for females worshiping a female force that females are experts at. Everyone can relate to that.
No, I don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't. But it isn't a female story. It's a story of a certain subset of females that have no use for the rest of humanity. That's what's happening here,
and they're not strong enough in the Force to prevent themselves from dying from rocks and fire. So
yeah, apparently not. I mean, and the funny thing is, why kill off Trinity in the first episode?
Yeah,
it's only a certain kind of woman that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Not all women.
With a fruit knife, no less.
Yeah. God. Stubble McShave for 50 Swedish krona. They should focus on great archetypal stories and then add the Star Wars skin. Go to the classics for inspiration. Tell a great story that resonates. Nick from Echo Base Network. Hey, Nick, EBN 199. We got the entire video downloaded. Stay tuned. Hey, Nick, cool. Can you send it to us? Can you upload it to a Google Drive? I will share it with everyone. If you are comfortable, please share the video. We'd all like to see it.
I'm just saying, let's also respect the fact that he took it down for a reason. And
well, okay. I'd like to
still
see
want
it.
to watch it.
We need to have a conversation about it. That's all.
Oilers Workshop for $4.99. I wonder why. Hey, I wonder why he took it down. Was he
yeah,
told
that's
to
what I'm
do that?
wondering.
He might have been.
Got him.
Yeah,
maybe.
Oilers Workshop for $4.99. They are inclusive with the physical people and characters, but exclusive with the storytelling. I literally can't relate to any of it. I don't feel included. Cincinnati's 5-star Barbara for $4.99. What dimension am I in? Star Wars is dead. Alan has a Superman curl hanging over his forehead. Gore has a beard, and my buddy RMB doesn't. Yeah, where's the beard, RMB?
I was looking a little old, I thought.
By the way, Rob is on our panel. Film Threat is doing a panel at San Diego Comic-Con on Saturday night. Dante and I are on a panel on Thursday together. So come to SDCC. Hostile bogey inbound for $5. As long as they stay on message, their loans and grants are guaranteed, and they will get favorable terms on expected projected returns. How am I doing on reading? I still feel a little retarded. I'm not going to lie.
Great.
Do I sound? I don't know. I'm still feeling
retarded. Is that what you're asking?
A little bit.
You make me happy.
Alan looks great in that. I love Alan in that clip. I remember Jeff from WCBS covering the last Jedi. Oh, remember that guy, Jeff, from that Canadian local TV, covering the TLJ leaks and sitting in shock in the theater at how bad it was. I gave up after TLJ, hence the screen name TLJ Screwjob. Stubble McShay for 20 Swedish krona. Can't wait for the BTS book about the ruin of Star Wars IP. Yeah, who was the guy who did all the behind the scenes books? Rob, you know, those big thick books.
Rinsler.
Rinsler?
Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah,
do you know they killed his Force Awakens book?
Yes.
He wrote a book on the making of Force Awakens and they killed it.
And that movie was heavily re-edited before it came out. There were characters that had toys that weren't in the movie.
Right.
Force
Dameron
Awakens?
died in the original cut of The Force Awakens.
What's that?
Oh yeah, didn't
Poe
they?
Dameron, that's Oscar Isaac's character, died in the original cut of The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't they decide to kill? Oh no, I'm sorry. I was thinking of TLJ. Never mind.
No, they killed off Han Solo instead.
But didn't they kill him in post in TLJ? He just disappeared. So.
Oh, Luke
I wonder if
Skywalker.
they
Yeah, Mark Hamill had no idea that he was dead at the end of The Last Jedi.
Yeah, he just disappeared.
Boat Night for $5. The cult saying the galaxy doesn't accept them when Coruscant has billions of aliens, with assuming a wide range of sex, gender, and orientation. Yeah, I don't get it. Like,
that's not what she meant. She meant they don't accept our. No, she meant they don't accept us for using the Force to do abominous things and using the dark side. That's why they were hiding. No, there's no prejudice.
Who exiled them?
Except for robots, at least droids. That's what George said. And then in the EU, yes, a little bit of xenophobia with the Empire against some alien species, but for the most part, there's no sexuality prejudice at all.
Yeah.
I mean, she just said the galaxy. The galaxy at large doesn't like you. Like, what have you been around to the galaxy? It's so vague. Yeah. Like, did men from your tribe like exile you? Like, just give us more details of your backstory. Yeah. Like, none of the dialogue was so.
But again, that would require thought, right?
Well, again, when you push in your agenda, when you push agenda above your storytelling, then the agenda's first. Everything else comes second. And so now you have this, mishmash of ideas that don't line up with everything else in the franchise. It's just just gobbledygook,
You're supposed to take it the way we took it. Modern agenda.
The men kicked them out.
Yeah, we're supposed to see it exactly as modern.
In universe meant they're ostracized for their Force practices.
Bingo.
The thread practices or whatever.
We'll just say galaxy. We'll just be as, vague as possible.
Yeah, only droids.
Yeah, and that's how you end up with mountains catching on fire.
They're very flammable.
Yes, rock is very flammable, apparently.
Yeah.
Rock.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elaine. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and she's like, "I'm gonna stop you from leaving by killing you." That was the best.
That was my favorite part.
Talk about a possessive relationship. Like, there were undertones you could read into what Leslie was doing there.
Not I love you, sister. I'll miss you, but no, you're not leaving because I'll kill you.
I can't have you. No one can.
Out of nowhere, right?
Sounds like
how are you going to stop me from leaving? I'll kill you. Like,
Michael Nemo for 2. Didn't EBN do a video on the Acolyte and Satan agenda? Yes, they did. It's a very good video. I've seen it. Nathan Cassidy for 999. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Also disproves their narrative as it has all the tropes we complain about. Strong female lead, minority casting, beta guys, and gay relations, and tell a good story.
Yep.
Lord of the Films for 199. Are y'all actually going to stop watching Star Wars for good? Only Dante.
Yeah, only Dante.
Only Dante.
I'm tapping out, man. I'm
You'll
tapping
come back.
out.
We'll get you
Can't do
back,
it.
bro. I'm telling you.
Default
You got to
name
watch
for
the shit show.
10.
Yeah, we have a channel
Holly-
to grow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hollywood has spent at least the last 15 years hiring feminists, believing female audiences want girl bosses. They are finding out ladies still want masculine men. I think so.
Well, it
so.
comes to the point
Yeah.
where what happened, what was big in the early 2000s? The Underworld franchise and the Resident Evil franchise,
Tape that can
female-led
sell.
action films. People wanted more of that. I remember because
Yeah.
that's what they asked me to do.
Yeah, but they weren't insufferable characters. I mean,
I
they
didn't
were-
think Kate Beckinsale
I like-
hated all the men in the movie. She liked Michael Corvus, the dude, and it's the. didn't
liked
feel
her
contempt-
outfit.
No
Oh,
blowback
yes.
to that. But the other part you also have to remember is that the media has changed since then too, because it's the media, the trays that are pushing those complaining agendas first, and then certain celebrities and certain people, executives, toe into that line. It's not always instigated by the studios, with the exception of Sony and their Ghostbusters 2016. You pay attention, read carefully, learn the distinction between the editorializing of a trade interview with a celebrity or spokesperson and what they're actually saying. Because when you see that, you realize there's manipulation going on both ends, not just with the trades towards us and conveying a message, but also with what they're doing to the people they're interviewing to try and get them to tout to their message as well. That's what
Well,
you have to pay
social
attention.
media just amplifies that even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of the gaslighting that women weren't a part of Star Wars from the beginning, in front of or in the stories and behind the camera,
Crucial
because
to it
that's
as
a
well.
dominant thing that they say now. But it's always been the case. I mean, from Marsha Lucas, but also Angry Badger, like you were showing off your True Sepultura book
Yeah.
before,
Oh,
written by a woman.
Written by
I
a
think
woman.
that's the first book after Return of the
Kathy
Jedi, right?
The first
not the
draft
different
of
Kathy.
Empire.
And
Yeah.
there's many,
Greedo in Star Wars was played by a woman.
Yep.
I
and
don't know
people
if
are
you
reading
guys
a
know.
book in a male-dominated fan base. People are reading Courtship of Princess Leia. So
True.
you can't use that argument that just men hate women. No, I just hate the gaslighting.
Pretty sure that
Because
was
that's
the
never
first
been the
Night
case.
Sister Witches. Force Witches was in the Courtship of Princess Leia, by the way.
Yes, and they were
so-
like riding around on Rancors. They were like this Amazonian like
Yes.
tribe. They were cool.
yeah, that all got retconned, of course, too.
Well,
but, yeah.
Marsha Lucas has arguably the greatest creative contribution next to George. This movie we would not be talking about this now if not for her. That original cut of the rough cut of the first Star Wars was a mess. Rob, I know you know. In fact, there was a college that had a black and white print of the original assembly of Star Wars. It was a mess of inappropriate humor, bad cuts. Like it was a bad movie. It was a bad sort
There
of
was
cheap.
40 seconds of Luke Skywalker with his binoculars staring up at the sky, watching the Star Destroyer
Yeah.
grab
Right.
the-
You
I-
can
I've seen it.
find
It's
little
horrible.
clips of it, but it was, and then she transformed that film. Rob, you know more about this.
Well,
as
no,
well.
that I mean, she absolutely did, and the thing is that what people don't understand too is Lucas had all these ideas, but Lucas was the first Uber nerd. I mean, he was a car culture kid from Modesto, and he barely kissed a girl, and he created he's Frog in American Graffiti. That's George Lucas and Charles Martin Smith, and he had all these filmmakers that were unbelievable. His peers were these unbelievable filmmakers, and a lot of them contributed and gave notes. And his Academy Award-winning editor wife worked for Martin Scorsese on things like Taxi Driver, and she was able to craft that film. There's actually 3 editors on Star Wars. There's Paul Hirsch and there's Richard Chew and Marsha Lucas. And these were all the adults in the room. And they turned the film, they shaped it. By the way, this is the editorial process. It's not something that's unique to Star Wars. People talk about Star Wars being made in the edit. No, you still have to have the raw materials. And I mean, even ILM didn't know what they were doing. They made up all their effects from scratch. They'd never been done before. So what it was a true group effort, and they were all collectively working toward this vision of making a film, a modern fable for everybody that appealed to everyone, all ages. So it wasn't dumbed down because adults couldn't, watch it. It was not. I mean, I think George thought he was always making a kids movie, probably.
He still says that, even though, yeah, he's an ideal man. He just needs to be reined back a little bit. Saw that with Empire and other things. Like,
Well,
good
yeah,
idea,
I mean, Lucas doesn't
but-
like. If you read Rinsler's book on Empire, which is amazing, Lucas had very little to do with it, really.
Yeah.
And it was Irvin Kershner, and they'd gone over budget, and they almost lost. They couldn't make payroll, and Gary Kurtz finally got them a loan from the Bank of Boston, and it was Fox that said to Lucas, "Well, you know what? If you give us back the merchandising rights, we'll solve your payroll problem." And they didn't do that. Gary Kurtz pulled it out the last minute, but Lucas doesn't like Empire.
Yeah,
he's not a fan.
He directed a lot of the second unit, which it's actually very good. So he's so detail oriented. It was the perfect role for him. A couple came in here. Charles Bronson, 69, 420 for 20. Hey, 2 cents from ex big fan of Verbal Riot. They're still bullies, act like victims. Reality, they have control of these IPs and they trash actual nerds with their editorial decision. They hate us and we should treat them in kind. And Star Wars Lego Rob for $4.99 says, my 70-year-old mom watched Marvel movies for the dudes, not the girl bosses.
Of course she did.
And yeah, various crazy people for $5. Force space using multiracial lesbians should not build castles on mountains of coal and not at least install smoke detectors. Just saying. I was saying they should dub in the sound of a like beep, like the beep of a smoke detector when it's running low on battery. Yeah, just put that in the episode. It would make a lot of sense. Chris G. Byron for $9.99. Chris, you sound a hell of a lot better than Alan when he reads an article. I love Alan.
Yeah, you're.
I love Alan.
Poor Alan.
Alan's just watching a smaller screen. That's all.
I agree with that.
Come with our flaws, whatever.
My font's not. Google did something to my font.
Yeah, no, it's all good, Alan. Whatever. How about a Dr. Aphra story? Says Star Wars Lego Rob for $1.99. I know what that is, and it sounds awful.
Isn't
Dr. Aphra?
Say, isn't that the dude? That's a different dude.
Yeah.
No, that's
Charles
Dr.
Bronson?
Evasian. Dr. Aphra is actually a
Thank
pretty
you.
cool character in the comics.
Thank you, Charles Bronson.
Who has these murderous robots, murderous astromech,
Ooh.
and yeah, it's Dr. Aphra is a good character.
Rob, we'll talk later. Tell me about this.
Yeah, anything like the guy where when you go to the new U in Logan's Run, the doctor there,
Yeah,
a little like that.
dark hair.
Dark hair. Farrah Fawcett. Oh my god. Various crazy people for $5. The Crapolites target audience was missed like Macy's trying to sell bras and tampons to men. That is a good description of it. Oliver Lavare Farrak for £5 pounds. Thank you. I think the reason why Rogue One works because Gareth Edwards genuinely loved Star Wars.
Helps.
Right.
Until Tony Gilroy took it from him.
Yeah. Oilers Workshop for $9.99. I think people are spending too much time on what's in the show rather than why is the show. Go farther up the chain, focus on the market makers and the why. There's more value in that for the future. Merlin Summer, great panel today. Thank you for the wisdom. Well, thank you, Merlin Summer. And Randolph Lalonde for $13.99. The High Republic books weren't very good, so my expectations were low, but the Acolyte falls with a flourish and with disconnected logic and bad story beats. And Randolph, you're a member. We have special member videos. I went to the premiere of the movie Thelma. Has anyone heard of this movie? Thelma?
Yeah, I have.
Sounds familiar.
It stars Jane Squibb. In real life, she is 94 years old. It is an action movie starring a 90-year-old.
Wow.
It
wow.
is. I don't want to ruin anything about this. You took my recommendation, or maybe you didn't, on the coffee table. But Thelma, please see this movie. Thelma, it's an action movie about a 90-year-old woman who gets ripped off $10,000 and she wants revenge.
Oh, is this the one with where she teams up with another elderly guy and they kind of go on a road trip?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I've seen
Yes,
that trailer.
Richard Roundtree.
I see that.
Richard Roundtree in his last role.
Wow.
Passed away.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Theaters on
Daps
Thursdays.
himself.
Jane Squibb is the actor. I recorded the Q&A. It's for members only. We're going to talk about it on Friday.
You have my
Alan.
curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
Richard Roundtree is so good. But imagine an action movie with two really old people. And it plays out just like
I'm
she's
imagining.
inspired by Tom Cruise. There's so many. I don't want to ruin it. Please see Thelma. We'll talk about it Friday, Alan. But thank you for all the super chats.
I look forward to it.
Does it have a coffee table moment in there too?
Yeah, no, it's not totally different movie. No, Thelma's in theaters, actually. It's not on VOD. Theaters only. So there you go. Okay, wrapping up our conversation, The Acolyte. Where are we going after 4? Will we be back next week still talking about this? And what's gonna happen with our here's what I want for this. I want this to be such a huge event. It gets attention on social media and the trades can't ignore it. I really want this to be huge. And we're going to play okay, for those watching or those on social media, we are going to show videos from you. So if you make a video, if you do a eulogy, like something like a minute long, will come up. I don't know what should the hashtag be? We need a hashtag. So we'll look up the hashtag and we'll show your videos during this long funeral. If you've seen funerals like Princess Diana's funeral, we want this to be bigger than that. Bigger.
Hashtag Star Wars deserved better.
No, literally, it's a global phenomenon. People from all over the world, people on social media, people posting. I have high ambitions for this. And Alan giving the sermon at the top and directing, Alan, we need the sage wisdom of Alan Ng to nurse us through this, to heal the tears.
Lead us, Alan.
Lead
I will
us,
heal you
Alan.
all. I will ease your pain.
The power of
I will
one.
touch you in many ways.
The power of two. The power of many. Alan.
To move objects with your hands, to get lucky, so to speak. What is the force? We talked about.
You have too many weird videos. All right. Okay. As we're wrapping up here, what I don't know. You have not seen 4 yet. You've not seen episode 4.
Not seen what you've
I'm
seen.
just really curious.
They're going to kill the dream, the Jedi's dream.
Well,
they're
there's
going to
a
make him
PETA
responsible
message.
for everything.
There's pronouns and there's a PETA message in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
yeah,
will
that's right.
I don't
further
know.
reinforce that the Jedi have been responsible for everything, that it's through sheer incompetence and patriarchy that the Sith were allowed to, flourish or whatever. And Robert, I was looking at this. Yeah, I did not realize. Yeah, I have not read a lot of the Disney era. So I saw this is 2015, the Vader comics.
This is a
You
great.
might
This is a
get
great
me
character.
because I've heard some
Wikipedia.
of them are good, like up to a certain point.
Yeah, this character's hilarious. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of fun.
You get me with comics. That's where I capitulate.
I just
But I
wanna
see it as
bring that
separate
up.
still. I still
this
see it as
X-Ray
Disney
Girl?
Star Wars. Yeah.
No, it's not X-ray girl.
But wait. Let me guess. So my predictions for episode 4. The male Jedi do something very stupid because they're stupid and weak, and the female Jedi correct them. Am I correct?
No.
No, because
It's
that
all
would
big
imply a
budget.
point to the episode.
You sure? Because it's been happening in every episode.
Well,
Yeah.
the green Jedi or the green Leslie Headland's wife is gonna
Oh,
she's gonna be on the
Venestra
planet,
Rowe,
so she's gonna take charge and probably like
Yeah.
you
Her
know,
purple
correct their
lightsaber
mistakes
whip.
and everything. Her
Jedi
bring out the
Canestra.
whip. She's gonna bring
Yeah.
out the whip.
Giggity.
Well, I can tell you none of that is going to happen, but I mean,
Well, I mean,
I feel
overall,
like-
it's not in the next episode, but I've seen it in trailers. She's gonna show up eventually.
I don't think there's going to be anything big to talk about until we find out one way or another through flashback exactly what caused the fire and or exactly how. Was it force scissoring? Was she just chanting? Is it a lie? Was it just biological somehow? Either way, it should be impossible. But yeah, that's what'll really.
No, you
upset
got to
me.
say the full thing, man. The fire in the mountain,
The fire in the mountain. Sounds like a Game of Thrones name.
right?
Interesting. This just came in. Opened the mind for 5. Knee pain. Former Lucasfilm employee removed the video and set the channel to private.
Oh, you
One
probably
of
got.
you need to speak to him. I'm on the channel now. It's there are no videos, and you can subscribe. Here it is. We'll put the link in the description.
Okay, you know what? That must have just happened like today, man. Because I was on his channel
Yeah.
hours ago, and videos were there.
It's gone.
Yeah,
Wow,
He
so that
nuked-
just happened.
he
Yeah, I just saw the
nuked
article
his
about this.
channel.
Yeah, that just
That
happened.
is crazy.
You don't
Wow.
cross Kathleen. You do
Dark
not
I
cross
was on that
Kathleen.
page right before the show, and all the videos were up.
I was too. I was watching
Wow.
Echo Base's
Wow.
video, and then once I watched Echo Base's video, I went to watch the original, and then I came here.
The power of the Pander
it-
Stone is strong.
you don't cross her, man. Kathleen, like you
Reaches.
said, she knows where the bodies are buried, and if you cross her, you're toast. I hope this guy's
my
all
guess
right.
is someone reached out to him. Someone contacted him. How dare you, a former employee,
Yeah.
say something bad about this? Is really, when you look at the way that Lucas deals with, fans and other folks, they do it like the mob. They
Right.
literally are like the mob.
Yeah.
I'll show you what happened to me. Here's my. Well, it's weird. We're gonna see ourselves doing a live stream.
Inception.
Here we are. There's a little inception there.
Stream within a
But
stream.
I replied to the Star Wars official
That's
channel.
me.
Where was it? A lot of my stuff is pretty stupid. I do. So here it is. Father's Day spoilers from the Star Wars channel. Empire Strikes Back. We've all seen it. And I said simply, I replied, Happy Father's Day with this graphic. And I said, and this guy, Brian Young, he just went, you can look at it. It's a terrible thread. I said, I'm not a fan. It's an embarrassment, objectively terrible. He says, well, I had a bad father. And I hope that I said, I'm sorry you had a bad father. He goes, I prefer Mother Anastasia and Coral to my father, but I'm so excited to see what happens next.
They're
the
not
Acolyte-
real.
Acolyte
these
is
are
so
bots.
good. This is Brian Young. I hope you're enjoying it, Chris. I said, I'm sorry you had a bad father. Like, I am not. It's an embarrassment, objectively terrible. He went off. He went off for just so many replies. So many replies. He just he was still fighting, and I was like done. So whatever.
And let me guess, he blocked you after everything was said and done.
Did he block me?
No,
No,
I'm just
he was
guessing because that's what they normally do. Is they block
You wouldn't be able to see it if he blocked you.
Yeah,
that's the
so,
point.
Those
I
Russian pot
didn't
farms,
block
so
him.
passionate.
I usually just mute people because that seems a better way. But that was that. What a fun day. Yay. Final thoughts. And I'd love to have you guys back next week. I don't know if the new time works. 1 p.m. Pacific. We're experimenting.
Well, I'm going to say this. Like I said, I'm not going to cover it on my show anymore. But if you guys make Star Wars videos, I'll gladly support you. I'll watch all your videos, give them a thumbs up. I'll comment. I'll share them. I'm done.
Well, I can't wait to talk to you about it. You're one of my favorite people, Dante, to just talk this stuff. But final thoughts on this. The thing is, why is this topic so hot with everyone, right? Like, I've been talking about Star Wars since I was an 11-year-old, and I saw the first movie just called Star Wars in a theater. Okay. Been talking. I remember seeing The Empire Strikes Back. I was 13, 14 years old. I remember the end of the movie. People weren't pissed. People were mad that it ended on a cliffhanger. I remember a guy got up and said, "That's it." The movie.
And then you had to wait 3 years. You had to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
That was a long 3 years. I remember that's all I could think about for 3 years. That's all I could think about was that.
Anticipation that used to exist.
It was great.
It was amazing. So this has always been an ongoing conversation. But I feel because Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy has so bungled this franchise, starting with one decision I think was terrible, not to reunite Han, Luke, and Leia, and Lando for that matter, in a scene. The beloved
R2, 3PO, Chewbacca.
Okay,
should have told us all we needed to know.
Would it kill you to have them all on screen in a scene? I mean, Terry Matalas with season 3 of Picard, arguably the best. That was the best send off ever.
Yeah,
that was great.
They were all in the boardroom. They all it was so great. That's what they should have done. And they had like not really member berries, but just great moments. Like everything that featured the original characters gave them something significant and awesome while introducing new characters. I want to see more of Jack Crusher. Why won't you give us what we want and what we're asking for? And that has received critical acclaim, as many awards, and fans love it. They refuse to give us what we want. They're trying to figure something out.
Kurtzman is embarrassed by it. He doesn't want to admit that he couldn't deliver such a thing by continuing it. That's the politics there. It's ego.
Yeah.
And so
probably a lot of Star Wars too. They could fix it real quick, but they don't, because that would have to admit they were wrong for the past decade.
Yeah, but that was a real tragedy not to reunite them as soon as you had the opportunity. And for an ending scene to kind of harken back to Star Wars, to kind of like poetry, it rhymes, for an ending scene to have them all together in Force Awakens would have been so good. Yeah. And they should have gone with Finn for the main character.
If they had made Finn and Rey his Padawans, Luke's Padawans, and by the end just had them been the main characters, everyone would have loved it. But then you would have given us a hero character in Luke, and they didn't want that either.
Give us one new adventure with the legacy characters.
Yeah,
and hand them off. Hand off new adventures to new characters. It was so easy. It was right there, the template.
Also, Finn, we've all had jobs we hated for bosses we didn't like. And that was our Finn was the perfect entry level character that also had the question of the morality. He was taken from his parents, probably made to be a stormtrooper. He didn't believe in it. He wanted to we could all, the same way we all understood Luke when he watched the twin setting Sons of Tatooine, we could have all understood Finn. That it was a dead end job and he didn't believe in it, and his conscience was getting the best of him. He was us. We were all Finn. And then they chose to not embrace that.
Well, because China, and we have to shrink Finn on the... I'm sorry, that really is what it is. That's why we did not get Finn to be the main stars, because global audiences, there is a lot of racism there, and that's why they shrunk him on for other countries. He and Rey should have been the twin, no pun intended, stars of the future, and for a bunch of different reasons, they weren't. And
they never bring up the racism of China, right? It's always us Americans who are the racists, the bigots, right? Never China, who they pander to.
And they even with Lando, right? He came.
They didn't have a problem with Sam Jackson.
And okay, so Lando.
Yeah, but he wasn't the lead.
Lando, it was implied, was the father of that one girl.
Yeah,
the girl, what's her name, Jaina and then nothing.
Was that a thing?
He could have been Finn's father.
It's made clear in the book that they tried to really explain what made no sense but that was supposed to be Lando's daughter.
Yes, it was supposed to be Lando's daughter.
Yeah.
Fine. And then they made him pansexual.
Finn could be the son that he had, that he lost, was taken. There's so much potential. Lost.
Bro, they made the Millennium Falcon a droid who's pansexual. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Nothing has been untainted. by them in one way or another.
I mean, I'll tell you why people are upset. I mean, look, I was a child when this came out. They've ruined our childhood. The thing is that when Star Wars came out, my family had just moved to an all-white community. And after the summer of Star Wars, went back, and that was how I made my friends. We all had one thing in common, Star Wars. And now with the Acolyte, and if you had told 10-year-old me that, you know, after watching Return of the Jedi and then showed me this episode of the Acolyte, I would be, this is insane. This is not where Star Wars is going. And the Acolyte was so bad. I hate white people now.
Yeah.
Clip that. No, when I was a kid, it was the same thing. I had a weird group of friends. We were all weird. But the thing is, we all loved this one thing, and that's what connected us. We were
now they pulled the rug out from under it.
Yeah,
everything we loved about it is now called into
Killed
question.
that in me, ruined that in me. Yeah, they've really done it.
Well, it's called into question by people that, you know, aren't believers, because I'd pose this question to everybody here on the panel and in the chat. Is Star Wars and the Empire, and for the most part, Return of the Jedi, are they no longer good movies now?
Oh, no, they're good to me still. They're not going to retroactively ruin my shit. That's why I separate it as Disney Star Wars and actual Star Wars.
I would argue that Disney is not powerful enough to make you hate the fact that you were once a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Like, look, those movies will always hold up. Always. I'm just saying, when I say Star Wars is dead, I just mean
Disney Star Wars.
I don't mean Disney Star Wars, right?
Star Wars.
Disney Star Wars, but because not just that, but, you know, Mark Hamill being an idiot.
Yeah, that's not helping either.
I feel like just a lot of Star Wars has been kind of tainted to the point where I still admire it. I still like it. I don't have the love that I once had.
Yeah.
Final super chats here from Randolph Lond, $13.99. Thank you again. Also, remember, I'll go on video for the first time since 2004 to offer a comment on the Star Wars funeral. Yes, we'll be showing fan videos. Thank you for that. Railer Swim for $4.99. The former Lucasfilm employee that spoke out that EPN video has closed his channel. Yeah. And Mexican Iron Man, who's a member, coming hot with 10. Thank you so much. Pick me. I now know what happens in the next episode. The witch sisters gather and chant from the outer rim to the sea. Emperor Palpatine must be free. What the fuck?
Palpatine, is that what you're saying?
The Jedi funded the Beskar dossier on the Chancellor.
Alan, you need to read this one here.
I'm sorry, what? Me?
You need to read this one here.
It's from Poly Latino Slant for 5. Another great panel discussion tonight. Alan is on the Latino Slant live tonight, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. Whenever Alan is on, the slant takes on a new meaning. That's right. It will be truly the Latino Slant.
Thank you, Paulie. Paulie watched The Coffee Table and was traumatized. He and his girlfriend. So, two recommendations: The Coffee Table and Thelma opening this weekend. I think might be the best movie opening this week, but we'll talk on Friday, Alan. Our normal Friday show is lots of reviews. Wednesday, Hollywood on the Rocks. There's no nooner this week. There are links to everyone's channel in the description. I will say this: I really look forward to Versus because I love talking to friends about nerd stuff. This is like what I do at like conventions. Well, Alan, I talk to you all the time. No, but everybody, really, truly, thank you. We're trying to develop a different group of people to just talk this stuff, and maybe so. Gosh, thank you. So, and Eric Winberg gifted 1 Film Threat membership. Thank you, Eric. Love that avatar of Kirk from the animated series. And so plug your channels. We'll be back a week from today. So let's go, everybody, starting with Angry Badger.
Okay. I'm actually going live right now, or on Nerd Wars channel. We always do things. He should be going live right now and stream sniping until I get there. But by all means, Nerd Wars. the big one I wanted to actually plug is Diabolical Souls Presents tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, and every Tuesday we will be going over X-Men 97, but we're going to have Bo DeMeo with us. The actual...
Wow.
He came on not the last week, the time before. Suddenly, we talked for about an hour and a half, and he's going to be joining us. So if you're interested in that stuff, that's Diabolical Souls. And then, on Nerd Wars, I'm live. And then on my channel, go on there. Set to notifications. You'll see it. I really appreciate it, Chris. Anytime. Would love to talk
We'll
Star Wars
send the
radio.
link out. Okay, Script Doctor.
Yes, every Saturday on my channel, Scripts on Saturdays, where me and a panelist review screenplays currently circulating around Hollywood looking for buyers. So please come check us out there. I also have a Patreon where you get advance notice of the script that we're reading, plus tips and tricks on how to write a story from me, the Script Doctor. Thank you so much for having me on today.
All right, Rob.
You can find me on the Burnett Work on YouTube, and also look out for, I'm currently in the middle of directing and producing a 10-part star-studded. When I say star-studded, you'll recognize all of these actors from your favorite movies and TV shows. Audio drama based on Max Allan Collins' books about Detective Nathan Heller. And the story we're doing, True Noir, the assassination of Anton Cermak, is set in 1932 and 1933 in the world of Al Capone and Frank Nitti. And there are actors that you've seen before in other very famous things that have been gangsters and things like that. You might hear them again.
Okay, Elaine.
Yes, you can find me here on YouTube at Nerd Cookies. I cover sci-fi and fantasy news and lore, everything from Stargate to Battlestar Galactica to Dune. So hopefully you'll find something that you love there. And you can also, I have a Patreon as well, and you can find me on the socials or Twitter X at Nerd Cookies. Thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Dante.
All right, guys. Yeah, you can find me Verbal Riot on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble or X, whatever. Again, disclaimers: if you're easily offended, easily triggered, I'm not your guy. But if not, and you just want to have a good time, follow me.
Yay.
And this is Derek Anderson, the DA. You can find my channel on YouTube. Every Saturday, we have the DA's office, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we put entertainment on trial. Also, I joined EBN. We'll be actually covering doing an after show for the Acolyte right after the episode drops tomorrow night. So definitely roll over to Echo Base Network. Shout out to Nick and Coach. We're going to have some fun with that. And then we also do a live stream on Thursday. So check us out there as well.
And thank you, Olaf, for €2. Great panel and stream, Chris. See you next week. Hope to see everybody here again. And Alan?
Let's get out of here.